This is our big mistake, to think we look forward to death. Most of death is already gone. Whatever time has passed is owned by death. Seneca. Alrighty, we're back finally after a long hiatus between a couple holidays and moving. I'm finally 90+% settled in the new place. I still have about 100 boxes to unpack and get this place tidied up and organized, but in a position now to finally record something. I had an episode that unfortunately was unsalvageable due to some audio balancing issues. Had 4 mics going and 5 individuals. Hoping to get that one re-recorded at some point. It was a nice 90-minute episode, but we won't dwell on our failures here. Just wanted to give a quick update on things. The fellows and I, or some of the fellows and I, are fortunate enough and lucky enough to be in a position in which we were able to register for the human trafficking awareness event at the Ben Franklin Range in the fall this year. I believe it's in Pennsylvania. We will be making the trek out, making the road trip out as a group. Those who don't know, if there are still classes available, definitely take advantage of those. I know Ryan Training Group is hosting a class during the event, although I'm pretty sure that one filled up first. So if you're looking to join just for that, probably don't do that, but there are still some other great classes. I know it's 2 days or 3 days rather. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you're able to choose from a menu of courses. You can take as many as you want, as long as your schedule permits. And basically it's all just $200 for any classes and all classes that you could want for that weekend. And it all goes to a great cause. An opportunity for us to put our money where our mouths are, which not many of us, find opportunities for us to do, and so a lot of us are just sort of stuck talking shit or LARPing and looking cool. Myself included, obviously. That's just the nature of things. This is an opportunity for responsible gun owners and good people to do something good while also benefiting themselves at the same time. So that'll be fun. We got a big Airbnb. A couple fellas gonna rip it. I believe the classes I took was a handgun class I signed up for. Another class was the counter-terrorist carbine, I believe is what it was called. And then I'm also taking a comms class as well. I'm taking 3 classes. My Saturday is basically comprised of 2 4 or 6 hour classes, and Sunday 1 6 hour, 4 hour class in the morning. I'll have screenshots and I'll put them up for any of the video enjoyers of the cast. And again, sorry for, let me turn that off actually, shoot. Forgot my Bluetooth speaker was still on here. Again, apologies for the very large delay in episodes, but finally settling down here. I also fucked up an episode, so that's why. Something happened, and so first of all, I put something on my story I wasn't really too proud of myself for, but I was fired up in the moment. And so, like an individual without any self-control, I shared it to the story for shock value. And the Redacted Culture cast has sort of touched on part of this topic as well, but sort of gun culture eating our own. We love to do that. We love to say, we have to poke out people's flaws. We have to find the shortcomings in others around us and try to discredit them. And for whatever reason that may be, it's an objective truth that that's a net negative for what we're trying to do here, And whether it's, just an expansion of the acceptable sort of array of, guns in the media, social media, life in general, or if it's just the, protection of natural rights, and whether that's however you want to go about that. What I'm trying to say is cannibalizing our own is never a good look. And so I have gone on record and I have said we need We need the wood grain stocks, we need the pump shotguns, we need the FUD stuff, we need the gun bunnies, and we need the other like really cringy shit too, because at the end of the day, that is, it's all sort of, it works like propaganda, right? It helps cast a wider net and to draw somebody in, just like Modern Warfare 2, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, those were sort of like the gateways for me, if you will, right? And so having sort of a wide spectrum of aesthetics, or I guess aesthetics is probably the right word, helps sort of draw people in. The same applies for backgrounds, for people in gun culture. But again, this is going to be one of those human issues. It's going to be very gray, and each sort of, whenever one side meets another side, and the beliefs and the preferences differ, each interaction is going to be different and potentially more heated or less heated than, a different sort of meeting of the minds, if you will. And so this week we got a heads up that some folks on the west side of our state were going to be putting together some sort of, thing in the woods training thing. I wasn't included in the chat. I wasn't sure what it was, but it seemed to be a weekend up north in this state where you'd be out in the woods, you're doing field craft survival. I'm not sure what it was really, what it really entailed, but it sounded like these guys were generally of the same interest as us. I had too many things on my plate. I did not ask to be added to the chat. I also just signed up for the HTA event as well, so I'm trying to save a little bit of money. I got a larger purchase coming up this year that I need to be a little more frugal with. So I passed kindly, and upon entering the chats, some of our guys who were joined were met with how do I want to go about this? We're met by a particular zealot, let's just say, to which he made them sort of proclaim, or make a statement rather, upon entering the chat, to sort of bend the knee, if you will, to adhere to his beliefs, or else you could not be a part of his group. And here's the gray area, right? That makes a lot of sense, especially if you're someone like me who says, the more structure, the more state, the more government you have, the worse things are off. I have always been an advocate for, those self-sufficient communities, and allowing those communities and the individuals in those communities to go about, handling business as they see fit. So this particular community, the boys on the west side and their chat, if they have a certain vetting process, as is their right, I'm not here to say that that's fucked up of them. However, let's just say the vetting process had strictly to do with religion. And again, more power to him. He's more than justified to do that. If that's how he thinks he should keep his people safe, or how he should keep himself safe, then, as is right, go right ahead. But as most things tend to go, as it relates to religion, politics, anything of the sort, it went south and angry and degenerative very quickly. Because again, we weren't my guys weren't really signing up to go to church camp in the woods, if you will. But at the same time, the folks from our chat aren't, godless, animals. They are from what I can gather, some are religious, some are not. But at the end of the day, they all sort of share the same belief that I have echoed time and time again on this, that, true equality and natural rights and, the respect and defense of said rights is sort of like the guiding principle. And everyone adheres to that very, very well. So when met with a particular, again, this crusader, this zealot who made them bend the knee and proclaim the word of his God, it did not go over very well, as you can imagine. And the chat it just went to shit talking, to the point where the leader of this chat of guys from the west side said some rather godless things, let's just say, some slurs that you would never really think a man of God would really want to say, or would not really be reflective of his beliefs. But again, it's his chat. He was going to go about running it one way, and that was not really going to work. And so, did calmer heads prevail? No, I don't think calmer heads really existed there. But it's, and again, I struggle with this too, right? Because then shortly after the shit talking, sort of stopped, or in between rather rounds of gunfire of shit talking, it very quickly became apparent that there were members in the chat from our group and not, that while subscribed to religions and beliefs like the leader or the head of this chat, they were not of the exact denomination. And then the eating of their own began very quickly, which I thought was very interesting to see. And then naturally, there was also some talk of like ridding the earth of, the unpure, those who did not exactly subscribe to their belief. And so very quickly, we dipped out of that mess. It started to reek a little too much of teenagers in AR-500 armor who were spending a little too much time online. Was sort of the opinion there. And this is all that I gathered from screenshots and some conversations I had with the guys from this side of the state this weekend. But it was just an interesting sort of back and forth. So I felt bad about posting that dude's Telegram name, showing the compound slur that he used, which straight out of a Modern Warfare 2 lobby, which I do respect. That shit is objectively funny. But in the context of the argument, it was such a contradiction. But I don't want to be the drama guy, but a lot of the stuff that played out this year with a larger brand and social media presence, let's just say around SHOT Show, and even before SHOT Show, some things that came up, in the past before this year's SHOT Show started spreading like wildfire. I wasn't interested in really spreading the memes, talking shit, sharing my opinion on it when I really didn't know. And then there I was doing that. So I'll fall on my sword. I'll admit I was wrong there. The compound slur was just not something that I was seeing or whatever foreseen in that. That's why it was so shocking. But anyways, I just sort of wanted to cover that, and that in those heated situations, it might be best to just like remove yourself from those groups, especially if you see these groups are a little too close-minded. And I hesitate to say that because I'm not saying that vetting people is wrong. I'm not saying that even maybe using religion as a guiding principle is wrong. But I am saying it's going to be short-sighted. You're going to cut yourself and your community off from very valuable individuals, right? Like we have insight, we have skills, we have knowledge that we can share, that we can pass on, just like they do for us as well. But to gatekeep in the sort of specific manner that he was going about, again, totally his right. And maybe that's the vision that he has for his community. It's just going to be this religion and this specific denomination of this religion, of guys running around in the woods, and so be it. That's fine. It is of my opinion, simply my opinion, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, that you are completely cutting yourself off from most of the population, though. This truck's going by. Hold on. I don't know how much you can hear that. I have escaped one train, and I'm still by another train, actually. It's just further away, so I don't think it's going to interrupt anything, but it's funny. You can't get away from trains here. Anywho, and I'm sure, in his neighborhood, or, around his sort of school district, everyone is mostly going to share that sort of same religious background and belief and subscribe to the exact same ideology as he does. However, in the grand scheme of things, you cut yourself off to, most people in the world, I would say, by doing something like that. But I did mention that using religion as a guiding principle is not a bad idea, because for the most part, generally speaking, and religions here typically do promote, good things. They encourage people to be good people, to treat people fairly and kindly, to do the right thing, and to live morally. That's all generally very good. And I'm not going to say that it's not. But to be like, you're not of this religion, you're dead to us, we'll pick you, we'll find you when the cleansing comes time, sort of thing. We're not interested in that at all. Just keep an eye out for that. Again, it's an election year. Everyone's super fired up. Everyone's really on edge. Every single headline appears to be, it's never been more over than it is right now. So yeah, take a step back, take a breather sometimes, and realize some people are just going to be absolutely fucking crazy. But that is the nature of the world. That is also sort of a side effect of wanting everyone to have, the same rights, everyone wanting the same access to firearms and whatnot, and community and training and everything. You're going to get nutty individuals, regardless of how much vetting you do, that are going to enter the sphere. And so it's your job and your responsibility to just be aware of that, to not sort of fall into their, sort of tricks and under their sort of spell. And just stay vigilant with you and your guys. It's really all you can do, and that's what we continue to do. So I mentioned election year. I'm not going to talk about the debate. I am more than a day late to that topic. Everyone knows how that went, and it went exactly how everyone expected it to go. A couple thoughts. I hate them both, obviously. Trump, the executive order, the bump stock ban, was the most aggressive assault on gun rights since the original assault weapons ban. He was also quoted, I believe, by saying it's his preference to take away the guns first and then let due process sort itself out. So he ain't your guy. And then you got Joe Biden, who obviously or the Democratic Party, I guess, because Joe Biden's not really running the ship, obviously, who just wants to take him away. So it's a lose-lose regardless of who you pick. And if you think Kennedy's your man, he's very pro-gun control as well. So it doesn't really matter where you go. If, the Second Amendment and your ability to protect your freedom in the most extreme cases and secure your own safety is like your number one sort of driver for voting, there's really no good answer here. I'm not even sure there's a least worst answer here. Because when it comes to your natural rights and your freedom, I don't think the least worst answer is an acceptable way to go about choosing the path forward. Again, my opinion. I know that firearms were not even discussed during the debate. Again, I don't know if that's a real a real thing to pay attention to or really think about. The debate was just we talked about golf swings. It's not a legitimate platform to discuss policy and plans going forward. So I don't think that we would have learned anything new about where these guys stand, even if the question of firearms did come up. I have heard some interesting theories about what's going to happen for the Democratic Party's nominee, though, because it can't be Joe, obviously. We know that now. I have heard. Earlier this year, I heard an interesting theory they might run Hillary. I don't think that's going to work. Not now with everything that people have learned. I think that ship has more than sailed. Newsom is a rather scary choice. Just given his age, he's younger, so he's going to be more spry. He can lean on that, whether he's running against Joe, whether he's running against Trump. And honestly, people saying he's failed. He's produced a failed state. And while that's right, look at everything else that your politicians have done. Look what Joe Biden's done. They will just say, no, I haven't. They'll gaslight you. They'll pretend that the facts aren't reality, and they'll just carry on acting political, acting professional, and just saying that you're a conspiracy theorist or you're crazy while he continues to run for president. So I don't think that really matters. Track record clearly does not matter to be president here. I've also read something yesterday, I believe, that Michelle Obama was the only potential candidate that was beating Trump in certain polls. That would be an interesting one. At the end of the day, I've also heard that Whitmer, our fearless and glorious leader here in this state who faked her own kidnapping. That's a great Tim Dillon monologue, by the way, how she faked her own kidnapping. Was also getting thrown around again, because I know she was teased for VP in the prior election. She's no different than Newsom in my mind. She's an absolute witch. So, but again, I have no genuine clue who they're going to run. I don't know when they're going to do it. And at the end of the day, I don't really care because they're not getting my sign off. I'm not approving them as my choice. So, but that's that. Again, just all I have to say. It is an election year. I know I talked about failed states. New York's got some more subway problems. I'd be remiss, even in this short episode, to not talk about the horrendous conditions of living in New York. But the latest article reads, New York's train woes get costlier. It goes on to say some trains on the nation's busiest rail corridor are getting more expensive but less reliable. New Jersey Transit is raising ticket prices for the first time in nearly a decade, just after several major service disruptions on its shared tracks with Amtrak outside New York City's Penn Station. Decades of underfunding, aging infrastructure, and exceptional heat have combined to make such incidents more frequent. They can ultimately cause real damage to the area's economy, experts say, and relief is far off. The $1.6 billion project to fix the rails won't be finished until 2038. I don't know why you would ever live in New York, in California. I just don't get it. You know, they've lost their luster. It's done. If you were fascinated by the American city of old, of, industrialization, living of the future and whatnot, the stock market and all that stuff, like, that's gone. These places are shitholes. They're absolute dumps. And unless you are in like the 1% where you do not need to get around, eat, or operate like the rest of the 99% of the people in this country, it's just not going to be the place for you. But it's the allure, rather, that you can make it to that 1% when you go there, is why people are obviously still drawn to them. Let's see here. I called this actually. I remember speaking about how the push for nuclear energy was never looked at seriously until there were some real capitalist gains to be made in it. And AI to the rescue there. It was never about saving the planet. If it was, the nuclear discussion would have been brought up a lot sooner and more seriously. However, now it is a very real option, and it's an option that we need to look at really quickly, according to a lot of outlets now I'm seeing, because of AI and the need for power. So we need nuclear energy now to stand it up. Forget saving the planet, I guess. Big tech needs to make its dollars off of its subpar automated search engine. And another article comes up saying big tech eyes nuclear power for AI. And while I read this, I couldn't help but invoke Boeing and capitalism here. It's no doubt that I think nuclear energy would be better if we're going, looking at this in the frame of, for the environment. Yes, no doubt. But sort of invoking the fourth pillar here, beware the frailty of man. Our haste to incorporate this, and strictly with profit as the incentive, like I mentioned, will definitely result in shortcomings. And when it relates to nuclear energy, those shortcomings aren't going to just be a delayed flight, a door panel flying off in the air, engines just combusting mid-flight. It's going to be much, much worse. And we can use, history as a reminder for many such cases where it wasn't even AI or strictly capitalist, it was capitalist incentive when those nukes, all around the world, or those reactors all around the world sort of melted down or failed. But this feels like there's a lot of haste behind it now, just for the purpose of AI. And boy, do I really hate that, because if we had airlines cutting corners when, there really wasn't much need for the haste, when you look at when these planes were built that were sort of exploding in the air. I really don't like that. And at the end of the day, I'm super unimpressed with AI. I've seen some cool things it can do in Photoshop. I've seen some fun things it can do with music and some image generation. But nothing I've seen has been like, yeah, that's really cool. That's really going to drive profits. That's really awesome. I know someone as well who is a coder, and it does not understand basic principles of coding. It is yet to create a string of code that is functional for him. And apparently his organization paid for the most expensive, highest performing model or version of GPT, whatever it is, that's supposed to be for coders and, or work for coders. And he's like, it doesn't understand basic frameworks, I believe was his term. I'm not a tech guy, so I can't really speak to it. So yeah, I think we got other things to worry about too. And it's not, I don't think AI is what we need to be really focusing our efforts on as a nation right now. Now, if we want nuclear energy because we believe it's better for, humanity as a whole, for whatever reason it may be, and there's science and facts behind it, then cool. Let's go about it, the right way, assuming that government oversight and bureaucracy can stand something up properly for the long term. I know, a stretch. But if you see this huge push for nuclear energy, it's AI driven, or rather, people pushing for AI. It's not an AI psyop, and I'd be very just aware of that, because the first reactor that goes up strictly to power AI energy, I'm gonna be highly skeptical of, and I'm gonna hope I am not living anywhere near it. All right, let's see. What else are we at here? Oh, this one was great. I loved this one. I couldn't even believe I was reading it for the most part. The World Economic Forum staff alleged toxic workplace. Excuse me. The WEF is being accused of failing to provide a safe working space for women and people of color. That is absolutely shocking. The Wall Street Journal reports, citing anonymous sources, the organization which runs the annual Davos conference faces allegations of racism and sexism by some current and former staffers. The complaints are particularly distressing to many, in part due to the organization's annual Global Gender Gap report, as some of the allegations of mistreatment came from former members of the very team that put it together, per the journal. WF denies the claims. All right, that's your boy, Klaus Schwab, the man who demands you will eat the bugs, you will own nothing, and you will be happy. Being a flaming racist and sexist. I believe this is also the same group that Gates is a part of. Doesn't matter. These are like the new world order guys. The guys who have enough money to fly in on private jets and tell you how you are destroying the planet by polluting it, by eating meat and everything. There you go. Truly the hypocrisy of people who command power knows no bounds, right? Like, from the president showering with his 12-year-old daughter to other presidential candidates flying on the jet of the infamous Mr. Epstein. Like, what? It all just sort of goes to show, and going back on the debate here, seeing everyone's reaction from the debate. Everyone going, and these aren't new comments, these aren't new responses after watching a presidential debate. You always hear people go, how is this the best democracy or this country has to offer? Because, like, for a while that gave me hope. I was like, this is great. This is just going to bring people to sort of the side that our people are on, realizing that, there's no way in this system with this government we will ever have, a good representative. And it also sort of goes back on the tenet of anarchism and just sort of making natural rights the forefront in your mind and making decisions, is that you will never be able to have a proper representative that's good enough for you and your natural rights. It is only you who's good enough for that. But then I realized we heard this during every debate. Every candidate stumbles because there's no candidate that's going to be good or perfect for the job. And so you hear the media, you see people on social media, your friends, your family are going, how is this the best we have? They're just sitting up there arguing with each other. This isn't very professional. This isn't very presidential. And yet they just go and vote for the least worst answer anyways. And I think that speaks a lot to how hard it is for people to come to terms with really difficult concepts and really scary and challenging ideas, playing things out to the worst case scenario, running to conclusions or playing things out in your mind to conclusion to see like what would happen. It's like, all right, what if so-and-so, goes into office, passes an executive order, and things go to hell in a handbasket, then what? Sort of playing that out in their minds. And I think it's scary. It's a challenging thing to do. But if you do it, you can at least start taking steps to prepare yourself. So that, the worst case scenario, the worst outcome possible, if it were to arise, you're in a little bit of a better position. You can at least feel better about yourself when times are good, knowing that, however things go, you're in a good spot. But voting is, it's like placebo in that sort of sense, right? You feel like you're keeping yourself safer by, either wielding the ballot as a shield or as a sword. But we've seen time and time again that some of the largest decisions that are made by your president do not require your vote or your consent or your permission. And you're just told to believe, well, that's how democracy works. That's how this country works. Just shut up and be a good little patriot, sort of thing. You didn't get to say whether we went to war with, Russia. You didn't get to say whether we went to war in the Middle East. You don't get to say where your tax dollars go. Let alone you don't even get to vote if it goes to your own brothers and sisters whose islands, were turned to ash. No, no, your elected officials get to take your dollars, your hard-earned cash, and send it to fund the war machine, which ultimately puts money back in their pockets and keeps them in power longer. Meanwhile, they look to send your sons, your daughters, maybe even yourself, to those very wars to keep putting money in their pockets as well. And again, uncomfortable thoughts, uncomfortable truths, rather. So people would rather subscribe to convenient lies. Just vote. Just vote. You take 20 minutes out of your day, put your name on a piece of paper, and look at that. I avoided, I saved myself and my family, and that's that. And what's scary is that is the belief of so many. And honestly, it's a simple life, right? Ignorance is sort of bliss. And maybe there is some stoic principle to that, where I'm not worried about what's happening down the road. I'm just worried about what's happening right now. And should the worst case come, so be it. Good for those people, I guess. If that's how they go about it, then, more power to them. I suppose I was blessed and cursed with a rather active mind, where I can't just ignore a problem or an issue. I need to analyze it. I need to dig into it. I need to solve it. I need to get ahead of it. But that's just me. Again, I have never, from the get-go, from episode 1 actually, I've never said, I'm going to tell you how to live your life. I'm going to tell you how to act. I'm going to tell you how to do things. That is not my interest. I'm simply someone who's going to share my thoughts. And if you vibe with them, cool. If not, cool. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I obviously made the jump from nuclear power there. Or no, that was the World Economic Forum being flaming racist and sexist. Same difference though. Let's see. Oh yeah, Pride Month's obviously over. You celebrate the 4th of July. I'm keeping the Pride stuff up on the website though. I have some quantities left of the shirts, the slaps. Excuse me, the shirts, the slaps, and the flags. So they're going to remain on the website full time. Sorry, I'm yawning quite a lot here. I'll get into that in a minute. They'll be on the site until they're out. I just love that design too much here, especially for the state of Michigan. Gotten a lot of compliments on the MDOT stickers and shirts flying the tax fraud pride flag high in the workplace as well. No one's asking about it though, oddly enough. I think people are just sort of burnt out from a lot of the flags you see now on people's cars, in the workplace, in people's yards. Also Tim Dillon reference. Go look up his Pride flag or his Pride Month rant. He's a gay comedian, by the way. But he doesn't understand what the fuck the flag means anymore. So maybe it's a little bit of that playing into that. Anyways, I'm now day 15, caffeine free, 100% off caffeine. I did it just for funsies, honestly. I was listening to somebody talk about caffeine and its effects. I wasn't experiencing any negative effects, I feel like I was sleeping all right. Didn't feel like I needed to cut it out really, but it sounded interesting. So I believe it was this particular individual's belief that after 9 days, your brain sort of fully resets its dependence on caffeine, or rather that's how long it takes for it to fully be flushed out of the system. So I was like, I'm going to go 9 days, see what happens. First 4 to 5 days were a living hell. So I'm not going to recommend anybody do it unless you cannot sleep or you have some other health condition, because I had legitimate, like real drug withdrawal symptoms. I'm someone who drinks 3 to 4 cups a day, weaker coffee during the week at work, stronger coffee during the day on the weekends, an energy drink during the weekends, sometimes as well on a Saturday. Um, Definitely, I guess, on the higher end of the caffeine intake spectrum, I guess, but by no means the highest in my sort of friend group or age range, I would even say. But to a doctor, that would be considered the high end of caffeine intake. Yeah, so for 4 or 5 days straight, I had migraines, I had sciatica. It was a living nightmare. But after day 7, I'd say it was downhill. Day 9 flew by. I'm on day 15 now, and I have not had the urge to have a cup of coffee or an energy drink or anything like that. And one very interesting observation, rather, I've had was, so I've heard sleeping better is a benefit of cutting it out. However, I don't know if I'm sleeping better or if I'm not as groggy in the morning, and maybe those are one and the same. But now when my alarm it goes off, I'm up. Like, I'm not groggy, I'm not rolling around in bed, I'm not going, oh, here we go. Like, I'm just like, all right, I guess we're up. Let's get after it, which feels great, which is awesome. Um, so I'm keeping it up to see what happens here. Um, I'm not as groggy throughout the day either, which is a plus. Um, and one of the observations I made, which sort of made me quit it, was that I was drinking it more so habitually, right? I was waking up, I got to work, I was like, I drink 3 clean canteens of coffee a day. I'm just going to keep doing that because that's what I always do, regardless of how tired I was, regardless if I really felt like I needed it. I just did it because it was like, it was my just routine every day. So I stopped that, tried to break it up, and it's been awesome so far. So we're gonna see how it goes. I'm not opposed to having a cup of coffee if I feel like I need one now. Um, I have quit like just coffee before, not necessarily caffeine. I switched to like teas and whatnot. I ended up just going right back down the coffee rabbit hole because the taste of coffee is just unmatched, I will say. But I don't have like that craving for coffee. Um, so it was a fun little exercise after the pain stopped. But I definitely recommend that you try it if you are somebody who is just interested maybe in changing up their habits, maybe going on a little exploratory journey to see how your mental fortitude is. And I know I said I would never recommend it, but if you're somebody who just likes to challenge yourself, or if you're not sleeping well, give it a shot, and let me know how it works, because it seemed to work pretty well for me. Um, See how long we've been at it here now. Going over a little 30 minutes now. Trying to think, what have I touched on here? Oh yeah, some kit updates. I'm switching over to an Axle Eclipse belt. I forget, I had a decent gun belt. It wasn't as rigid as I would have liked, but it was good enough to get the job done. I'm on the Axle Eclipse now. I believe I have a large. Don't love the sizing on the site. Maybe that's just my ignorance and not really understanding it though. Um, According to the site, I believe like a medium was going to fit me. However, I found that the hardened sort of like the structural material on the belt didn't overlap. It wasn't long enough, rather. If you're not familiar with the axle belts, then so large is really for me. I wear a 34 waist, so large was the right call for me there, despite the picture, I believe, the sizing showing that medium would be correct. Um, maybe I'm using the belt wrong, but so far I love it. Um, what else do we have? Oh, some of the new pictures you're seeing posted to the Instagram are from. We got out there to Demo's house. He is the affirmative action member of the podcast. He got a new house out in the sticks. We'll say, and we were able to get out in the woods in full kit, rifles and all that, and take some really fucking cool pictures. Um, and just an awesome time. So the new pictures you're seeing are of that sort of photo shoot, if you will. that awesome day in the woods. We went back after, ate some excellent pulled pork that was thrown in the smoker, sat around a campfire, smoked some cigars. Just an awesome day. Um, and then yeah, I think that's probably it. Didn't really have a game plan coming into this one. I had a couple articles saved off to the side that I wanted to sort of talk about and give my thoughts on because they've been sort of topics that I've been tracking for a while. Moved into the new house. We have a nice table here with a lot of light coming into sort of the main room here. Hoping to get the boys around this, or I have a screened in sort of patio. Hoping to get the fellas back out here to get one recorded once I can properly balance microphones and space them out properly. Um, but yeah, sorry again for the delay. And after this 4th of July and with an election coming up, don't get it twisted that the American spirit, that spirit of 76, your freedom, all of that is based on a revolution. It's based on a rebellion. It wasn't based on going to the polls and voting. It wasn't based on acting kind and polite towards those who sought to make you the victim and steal that which was most valuable to you. Being rebellious, being defiant towards tyranny and violence is absolutely in your DNA. It's your birthright by being an American citizen. And so that's really the sentiment I want to top or sort of end with today. I'll sign off with that, if you will. There wasn't a whole lot of is an interesting fourth for me. I'm not sure if anyone else sort of shares the sentiment. I didn't get a whole lot of American pride out of this one, right? And obviously there's a lot going on. Our hands in the cookie jar and a lot of wars, inflation, obviously the economic situation. So maybe people couldn't celebrate or weren't really feeling very celebratory. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel people were too fired up. I'm not sure what that means. It's really just an observation. It's just my personal observation. I hope I'm wrong, obviously, because I want people to be fired up for what they have, for this country, and not letting it be taken from them by the least qualified to even run a fast food restaurant. So just keep that in mind. You are where you are today because late teens, early 20-year-olds decided that, you know what, we're not going to let these old fucks in white wigs take what's rightfully ours and make us victims and their slaves. So keep that in mind with the election coming along and after this 4th of July has passed. Looking forward again, talking to more of the fellas, getting a post. I'm hoping to get an episode out during that range day as well when we're out at the HTA event. Look into that. If you haven't, I'll shout it out because it's for a good cause. I have no affiliation to them, by the way, or with Axel. I talked about the belt a little bit there. But until next time, take care, enjoy. Make sure to go outside, please. There's a lot going on in the world. Depending on where you are, it is the summer, so the weather should be sort of nice. Get some sunlight in your eyes and on your skin. It's good for you. But until then,